Hey everybody, welcome back to Summit. My name is Mark. We're taking a look at the 24th Sunday in Ordinary Time. You know, it's hard being perfect, isn't it? I mean, I know you probably don't find it very difficult. I don't find it very difficult, but for other people, it's probably difficult being perfect. For us, it's very easy. Obviously, no one's perfect, right? I mean, we know this. No one's perfect. And even those of us who are seeking the Lord, those of us who are trying to live our faith, we're reading the Bible and going to Mass and trying to live a virtuous life, trying to be as close to perfect as we can, even though we know it's going to fall short because no one's perfect except Christ alone. But you know what? These readings this week are a great reminder to us of how good God is and how God does not give up on us imperfect people. Though we are sinners, and many of us, we repeat the same sins over and over, we fall into the same sins, we run towards the same sins, we confess the same sins, we're still trying, right? We're doing our best, but God doesn't give up on us. God is mercy. God's not just merciful, God is mercy. He is loving. He's always loving. He's perfectly loving, unconditionally loving. The question is, what are we? In the first reading this week, there's this famous story from the book of Exodus. And this is after Moses has led the Israelites out of Egypt, and the Pharaoh and the whole army come behind them in the Red Sea and all that excitement and stuff. And this is when they get to Mount Sinai. And Moses is up on top of the mountain. He's having a face-to-face encounter with God. He's getting the Ten Commandments. But meanwhile, at the bottom of Mount Sinai, all the Israelites are like, hey, what do we do? Moses isn't coming back. Oh, in this first reading, we hear about the famous golden calf. Now, why do they make a golden calf? They take all their jewelry, all their valuables, they throw it into this pot, get all this gold, and they make a golden calf that they start worshiping like a false god. Now, why is this? Well, the Israelites have been enslaved in Egypt for about 4 centuries, and they've been exposed to the false and fake Egyptian gods, right? The small g gods. And this is what they're accustomed to. This is what they know how to do. So when Moses goes missing, quote unquote, they're like, well, we don't know what to do now. Let's go back to what we knew. We'll worship a false god. And this is where Moses' brother Aaron should have done something more, in my opinion, but we're not going to judge. What's amazing, though, is that even though they worship this false god, right, and even though God is rightly upset about it, God is going to be merciful because of Moses' prayer for them, his intercession for them. We're going to hear in the second reading, St. Paul's going to tell young St. Timothy, this young bishop, his understudy. Paul's sort of the mentor. He's the Batman. Timothy's sort of a Robin, right? He's going to tell Timothy, hey, I wasn't always this guy. I was arrogant. I was self-involved. I was not a good dude. Like, I was not following the Lord. But the Lord was merciful, and he was patient with Paul. And then we're going to hear this famous, probably the most famous parable in all of Scripture, Luke chapter 15, the parable of the prodigal son. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire story. You're going to hear it in Mass. You should read it on your own. Go back to Luke 15 and read it on your own. It really is one of the best stories ever told. But in this, what do we see? We see this son who rejects his father, goes off, wastes all of his money, makes terrible decisions, and then he goes back, and what do we see in the father? Mercy. That God the Father, okay, who's personified by this earthly father, is mercy. God is loving. He's patient with St. Paul. He's patient with the Israelites. He's patient with the prodigal son, with the sinning son. He's patient with you and I, the sinning sons, the sinning daughters. He's patient with us because God is mercy and God is love. The question is, what are we? You and I are not perfect. God alone is perfect. But even in our imperfections, God looks through our unworthiness and he declares that we're worthy because we're his son or his daughter. So you and I, we have sin. What are you going to do about it? Get to confession. Turn things around. Do the best you can. And like that son in the parable, turn your heart back and don't walk, but run back to the Father.